You know, it's funny how sometimes the stories we think we know best, the really familiar ones, actually hold the deepest insights.
That's absolutely true. They can seem simple on the surface, but there's often so much more underneath.
Exactly. And today we're doing one of our deep dives into, well, just such a story, Jesus' parable of the sower.
Ah, the sower, yes. A classic. Seems like a straightforward farming story at first glance.
It does, doesn't it? But we want to, unpack the layers. For this discussion, we're looking at the parable in Matthew and Mark, drawing on several commentaries.
Okay.
We've got the Concordia commentary on Matthew by Dr. Jeff Gibbs, the Concordia commentary on Mark by Dr. Jim Veltz, and also the book Kingdom, Judgment, Grace by the Episcopal priest, Father Robert Capon.
A good mix of perspectives there. Gibbs and Veltz from a Lutheran perspective, Capon from an Episcopal one. Should
Yeah.
be interesting.
Right. So our mission really is to see what these commentators help us understand about the parable's meaning and, importantly, what it might mean for you listening today.
Sounds good. And Father Capon actually makes a pretty strong case, doesn't he, that this parable is almost like a key?
Yeah, he does. Appearing early in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, he finds it significant, thinks it helps unlock the other parables.
It certainly gets prime real estate in the Gospels, alongside things like the weeds and the lemon.
Definitely. So let's set the scene first. Matthew and Mark both place this by the Sea of Galilee. Jesus is in a boat, talking to this huge crowd on the shore.
Right, using the boat for acoustics, probably.
Mm,
A natural amphitheater.
makes sense. And he tells this story. A sower throws seed. Some lands on the path, some on rocky ground, some among thorns, and finally, some hits good soil.
The agricultural analogy. Very relatable for his audience at the time.
But as Dr. Gibbs points out for Matthew, it's immediately clear there's more going on than just farming tips. It's about how the message itself is received.
Or not received, in some cases. Which really sets the stage for understanding why people react so differently to the same message.
Which brings us to the why parables question. Dr. Gibbs notes something interesting about the timing in Matthew's gospel.
Oh, yeah.
He points out that Jesus starts teaching heavily in parables after facing quite a bit of opposition and, frankly, lack of faith.
Ah. So the narrative context suggests it's not just a teaching style, but maybe a response.
Kind of seems that way. Like the message is going out broadly but understanding. That's not guaranteed. It raises the question, are these stories meant to reveal truth? Or maybe conceal it from those not ready?
That's the perennial question with parables, isn't it? Father Capon, seeing the sower as this key, suggests they demand something from the listener. Active engagement, perhaps?
Requires you to lean in a bit.
Exactly. They aren't just spoon-feeding information.
Father Capon talks about why Jesus used parables at all. He actually quotes Isaiah.
Yes, saying Jesus spoke this way, so that they may indeed see but not perceive, and indeed hear but not understand.
Lest they should turn again and be forgiven. It almost sounds like he didn't want everyone to understand, which feels counterintuitive.
It does raise questions, definitely, but Father Capon's analysis suggests it's about the nature of understanding itself. It wasn't just about hearing the words.
It required something more.
Exactly. Something deeper. A willingness, an openness, maybe even a certain kind of heart to grasp the mystery, as Father Capon puts it. It implies understanding isn't just passively received. For those unwilling to really engage, the truth remains veiled.
And this wasn't just obvious, even to those closest to Jesus, right? Father Capon points this out too.
Absolutely. The disciples themselves had to ask Jesus what the parables meant, including this one.
So if they were confused,
What hope did the average listener have without that willingness to dig deeper? Their questions showed these weren't just neat little stories with obvious morals.
so the mystery revealed isn't just information.
Father Capon suggests it's more profound than that. It's about grasping a new reality, the reality of the kingdom, which inherently calls for a response, a change. It's not just intellectual assent.
So let's break down the elements. The seed and the sower. Dr. Gibbs lays out the common understanding. Seed is the word of God, the sower is Jesus.
And by extension, anyone who proclaims that word right. It's not just Jesus in the boat.
Good point. And Father Capon really highlights the image itself, the sower just casting seed everywhere, widely, generously.
Almost indiscriminately, you could say. God, the sower, keeps scattering the seed, the word generously everywhere, even knowing much of it will fall on unreceptive ground.
Ah, so the focus isn't just on the outcome, but on the unwavering act of giving the word.
Precisely. Father Capon sees this as revealing something fundamental about God's nature, this relentless, generous outreach, despite the varied results.
That's a powerful way to look at it. But Father Capon also tackles the question of Jesus himself, the word made flesh, using this image of the word being sown. Why the analogy?
Yeah, it's an interesting point he explores. I think Father Capon's perspective is that while the word itself is powerful, its effectiveness isn't, well, automatic. It depends entirely on the receptivity of the hearer.
The soil.
Exactly. The best seed in the world needs decent ground to grow. So the power is there, but activation requires the right conditions in the receiver. What does that tell you about the nature of the message, the word itself? Is it rationed?
Doesn't seem like it. Seems abundant, intended for everyone, everywhere.
That's a powerful image of God's generosity, I think. Okay, so the seed is good, the sowing is generous, the variable is the soil.
Right. Let's get into those 4 types. First up, the path. Hard, packed ground.
Yeah, Dr. Gibbs and Dr. Voelz both describe this. Seed lands, birds come, gone, instantly.
And the interpretation, it represents those who hear the word but just don't get it, don't understand. And Satan, or maybe just distractions and hard-heartedness, snatches it away before it can even begin to sprout.
Makes you think, what are the hard paths in our own lives? Those ingrained beliefs or constant distractions that just don't let anything new penetrate.
That's a challenging question. Okay, next. Rocky ground.
The shallow soil of a rock. Both commentaries mention this.
Seed falls, sprouts up fast, looks great initially. There's enthusiasm, maybe joy even.
But there's no depth, right? No room for roots. So as soon as things get tough, trials, persecution, maybe just the difficulty of living out the message,
it withers, falls away just as quickly as it sprang up. Lack of foundation.
yeah, it's that initial burst of excitement without the follow-through, without the deep commitment. We've probably all seen that, maybe even experienced it, when enthusiasm fades at the first hurdle.
Definitely relatable. Okay, soil type 3.
Yeah.
Among the thorns.
Now this one does sprout, and it grows alongside the thorns.
But it gets choked out. Dr. Gibbs, looking at Matthew, points specifically to the worries of this life and the deceitfulness of wealth.
Those are powerful competitors for our attention and energy.
But interestingly, Dr. Voelz notes that Mark's version adds the desires for other things, a slightly broader category.
Yeah, that's a subtle but maybe significant difference. Matthew focuses on anxieties and riches. Mark adds this general sense of wanting other stuff, distractions, competing desires.
So it's not just big worries, it could be lots of little desires pulling you away.
Seems like it. It paints a picture of how even a promising start can get suffocated by, well, life, the anxieties, the allure of wealth, or just the constant pull of other interests. What are those thorns for you, you know? What competes for your energy and focus?
Another tough one to reflect on. Okay, finally, the payoff. The good soil.
Yes. The seed lands here, takes root, grows, and produces a crop. A big one.
And not just a crop. Matthew mentions yields of 160 or 30 times what was sown. Dr. Gibbs really emphasizes this astonishing productivity.
It's a remarkable return, way beyond a normal harvest, really. It speaks volumes about the potential.
And crucially, this represents those who hear the word, understand it. Dr. Gibbs highlights that understanding, accept it, and then bear fruit. It's the whole process.
Hearing, understanding, accepting, producing. It implies an active receptivity, doesn't it? A readiness.
So what makes soil good? What cultivates that receptive heart and mind in us? That seems to be the million-dollar question.
It really is. It involves preparation, attentiveness, maybe clearing out some of those rocks and thorns we just talked about.
You mentioned attentiveness. Dr. Voelz brings up something related in Mark's account.
The he who has ears to hear, let him hear part.
Exactly. He points out that Jesus says this before and after the parable in Mark. It frames the whole thing.
Yeah, Dr. Voelz sees that as a strong emphasis. It's not just background noise. It's a direct command. Pay attention, listen deeply, strive to understand.
It elevates the act of listening, doesn't it? Makes it an active, crucial part of the process.
Absolutely. It's not passive reception. Yeah. And then you connect that emphasis on hearing with the incredible yield Dr. Gibbs talks about.
The 30, 60, 100-fold.
Right. It suggests that when that active understanding hearing connects with the word, the result isn't just small incremental change, it's potentially transformative,
Right.
abundant.
Which circles back to the purpose of these parables. Dr. Gibbs discusses Jesus' own explanation to the disciples later in Matthew 13.
Where he says essentially, to you it's given to know the secrets of the kingdom, but not to them.
Yeah. He explains that those who are receptive, like the disciples, get the inside track. But others, those outside or resistant, they hear the stories but don't grasp the deeper meaning. It fulfills prophecy about seeing but not perceiving, hearing but not understanding.
So it confirms that idea of parables both revealing and concealing. They sort of filter the audience based on their readiness or willingness to engage.
Seems to be the implication. They require something from us, an openness, a desire to look beyond the surface story. And Father Capon doesn't ignore the negative outcome, the resistance.
Not at all. He sees the parable as realistically confronting the fact that the good news faces hostility and indifference.
The seed being snatched, choked, withering.
Exactly. These aren't just incidental details. They represent real forces and attitudes that work against the word taking root. Father Capon acknowledges that reality.
So, wrapping up this part of the discussion, it really sounds like Father Capon in Kingdom Grace Judgment positions the parable of the sower as, well, incredibly foundational.
Absolutely. He sees it as a master key, unlocking our understanding of the kingdom, the nature of God's word, and critically, the vital importance of how we personally respond to it.
It sets the stage for so much else.
It really does. It lays out the fundamental dynamics at play whenever the word is proclaimed.
Have you ever had that experience where something you heard or read suddenly clicked maybe years later because you were finally ready to understand it?
Oh, definitely. Insight often needs time, reflection, maybe different life experiences to really land.
So bringing it all together, Father Capon's take seems pretty powerful here. He argues the parable isn't fundamentally about judging the sower's technique or the seed's quality.
No, the sower sows generously, the seed is potent. The variable, the focus, is the soil, a reception.
It shifts the responsibility, in a way, to the listener, to the ground receiving the seed.
And Dr. Voelz frames it as both warning and encouragement. A warning to check our own soil condition, but also encouragement that good soil is possible and the yield can be amazing.
So this ancient story, the parable of the sower, it's incredibly relevant, isn't it? It's a mirror for how we receive all kinds of important messages or opportunities in life.
Absolutely. It's timeless because human hearts and minds still have those same potential conditions. The hard path, the rocky shallows, the thorny distractions, and hopefully the good fertile ground.
And it's not necessarily that one person is always one type of soil, right?
Exactly. That's a crucial point. We might be different soils at different times, or even different soils regarding different areas of our lives simultaneously. Part of us might be receptive, another part completely closed off.
That makes it even more personal, more dynamic, a constant process of cultivation.
It's about tending the garden of the heart and mind.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, that really leaves us with a powerful question to consider, doesn't it, for you listening? What kind of soil are you cultivating right now?
And maybe, what's one small step you could take today to clear away a few stones, pull a few weeds, or just be a little more receptive to the good seeds that might come your way? How can you work towards becoming that good soil, ready for that abundant harvest?